Over the years, I've made rings with all sorts of cool materials. Everything ranging from Megalodon teeth right through to whiskey barrels. But in this video, I'm going to tell you the story about a pair of rings that really took the biscuit for the most unique, crazy material. So it all started last summer. I got an email from a couple who were getting married in the autumn, and the groom was very passionate about his job. He was a deminer. That's someone who removes landmines, not a C major. And this couple wanted a pair of bent wood rings, pretty normal stuff, made with mesa birch veneer, which is a very nice wood to use for wedding rings, as well as some blue lapis lazuli that they'd sourced from Afghanistan, which again, pretty standard stuff. And they also wanted me to use a chunk of landmine in the rings. So I was a bit apprehensive at first. I'm always conscious about my customer's safety, and I didn't know whether, there'd be lots of nasties in the landmine that might not be suitable for jewellery use. However, the customer, who was an expert on these things, assured me that it would all be okay. And so a few weeks later, I received a chunk of a landmine in the post. I had literally no idea what to do with it at all. No way of really working with it. So I had to enlist the help of my friends from Emberleaf Workshop. They make some of the sickest knives I've ever seen, and they were kind enough to help me out. So I jetted off to Petworth, hooked up with the boys at their awesome new workshop, and this is the story about how I made a pair of rings with a landmine. Before we get going with the story, if you're interested in learning how to make wooden rings, then sign up to my email list. There's a link below. Then you can find out more information about an online bent wood ring making course that I've been working on, and stay in the loop for when that launches. So without further ado, this is how I made a pair of rings with a landmine. Yo, what's happening YouTube? Today I'm at the Emberleaf Workshop to enlist the help of my friend Dean to help me turn a landmine into a ring. So the first stage was actually to kind of remove some of the paint from the landmine. So Dean heated it up with a blowtorch, and then used a wire brush to brush the paint off, which actually worked an absolute charm. Initially the plan was to forge the piece of landmine into a ring shape. So to start that process, Dean welded the mine to a bar, ready to stick into the forge. With the forge fired up, we were ready for action. Everything was going according to plan. Just a simple case of taking it out of the forge and then shaping it with a hammer. That is, until this happened. Great success! So it looks like attempt number 1 was a failure. I think it's a casting, so it means it is broken. But on to plan B. So yeah, it turned out the landmine was actually like a porous casting. It didn't take too well to being hit with a hammer. So the next plan was to try cutting it up on the bandsaw, which didn't really work, but did make a lot of noise. After 2 failed attempts at making this into a workable material, Dean just said, screw it, let's just linish him. So being careful not to set himself on fire, Dean just used an industrial linisher to turned the mine into this black powdery substance, and then used a blowtorch to burn away any particles from the sanding belt. And that was the hard part done, really. After I turned the landmine into that beautiful metallic black dust, it was just time to head back to Worthing to my workshop to just do some standard bentwood ring stuff, really. So I just sliced up a couple of pieces of mesa birch, prepared them for bending, and then glued up the two rings. Luckily, these two were actually both exactly the same size as well, so it was pretty fast going. With my wood rings all wrapped up, I just had to do a bit of shaping, get everything the width. Then it was time to move on to the inlays. So I just marked the inlay channels out with a marking gauge and cut them deep enough with a file on the lathe. To deal with that large piece of lapis lazuli, I just broke a piece off with a hammer and then used a heavy piece of steel round bar just to pummel it into dust. Setting inlays is pretty simple work for me, really. Just put a bit of glue into the channel and then fill it with dust and carry on until the channel is completely filled with the material. So I did the blue lapis first and then moved on to the landmine. I was really happy with how this material actually turned out. It looked like kind of like a glittery black dust. Very unique, very cool looking. The final stretch for making the rings was to sand the inlay channels down flush with the wood, and when they were all cleaned up nicely, I just applied a CA finish which would help to protect the ring from the elements and make them really long lasting and pretty. And then pretty much when I had a nice thick coating on every surface of the ring, I just moved on to polishing, which left the rings with a beautiful glassy shine. And that's it. That's how I made a pair of rings with a landmine, a piece of lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, and a lovely bit of mesa birch. If you liked the video, subscribe and leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. And of course, sign up to that email list if you'd like to learn more about learning how to make wooden rings. See you in the next one.